But if you're coaching a team member, you're coaching a producer, and you're just saying, don't stop there, that's a real fear to like have a life conversation. Like that is really scary to have that conversation, to muster up any kind of self-confidence that you have to say, hey, let's talk about financial services.
In today's episode, Courtney and I sit down and have a conversation with Josh Ross, and you are in for a treat today. We dive into Josh's morning routine that sets him up for success. We go into struggles that his team is having with life insurance, and then we actually coach Josh live on one of his biggest struggles and how to drive higher life insurance premium. With that being said, if you want to be coached live on the Insurance Buzz, we want to hear from you. Text us right now, 816-727-7610. Text the word coach and tell us a little bit about your biggest struggle, what you're working through, and we'll go from there. So again, if you want to be coached live on the Insurance Buzz, we want to hear from you, 816-727-7610. With that being said, let's start the show. Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. We are your hosts, Michael and Courtney Weaver, and we have a very special guest with us today, Josh Ross. Josh, how are you doing, my man?
I am fantastic. How are you guys?
I'm good, man. If I said Josh Ross 5 times, I don't know if I could do it without just thinking of your name.
Josh Ross, in high school they called me Josh Ross, just to keep it simple.
Josh Ross. Oh, I love it. Josh, we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about discipline, because before we hit record, we were talking about really what it takes to be successful. And we were diving into the concept of discipline. And I want you to elaborate a little bit on what that means to you and your office, because you have a wildly successful team.
Yeah. Well, first off, it starts with the time that personally I feel the time you wake up, what you tackle to start your day, really determines how you end your day. So typically, I'm up at 4:30. I go to the gym at 5 in the morning, and, I'm done at 6:30. I have breakfast and I go to the office. So, that routine there has really helped set the foundation for my mindset, and where I'm at currently, through my business and personally. Really tackling those goals early on makes it easier to hit the goals that you're faced with later on throughout the day and in life, and whether it's again business or personal. So and with team, it's really making sure that we're getting in our calls every day, making sure we're getting in our quotes. My philosophy is if we're making 80 calls a day, 10 quotes, 3 sales. If we are doing one of those things every single day, then we're going to be successful. And really taking these big challenges and breaking them down and into the simplest form has I think that's really the foundation to any success that you're looking for. A lot of people look at me like I'm crazy when I say I work up at 5 a.m., but I didn't start there. I wanted to work out at that time, but I started working out at 6:30 to 6:45. It started 15 minutes from me waking up and working out at home, and then I pushed that back to 30 minutes. And then when I got to an hour, I was like, okay, now I have time to make it to the gym. It's the same with what we do in the office. Start small, and you'll find yourself hitting your goals sooner than you ever thought.
That's good. As you know, I'm a huge fan of winning your morning, so I dig that, man. I'm just not the same person. I wake up at 4:30 as well. Well, transparently, I slept in this morning because I didn't sleep good last night. I just haven't been the same person. So I get what you're saying, man. It helps me both personally and professionally as well, my psyche. So with that discipline, let's back up a little bit, because you are a new market insurance agent. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the mindset of success. Has it always been like that? Or was there a point where you're like, okay, I have to start operating differently?
Well, when I first started, my previous agent that I worked for challenged me to create an onboarding packet. He really wanted an onboarding packet. I was like, you know what, this will be a win-win, because I can give him one and create one for myself as well. So really I think that from the very beginning, we had success. We traveled our first year, we traveled year 2. And for me, success is very relative. I'm nowhere close to where I want to be. I may be successful to some people, but in my eyes, I'm just getting started. But eliminating the gray area is really important in that, and really trying to make things black and white. As I said, my processes are all written down. When my team comes in, I say, hey, this is what we have to do to be successful. This is the process. Follow it, and don't deviate. If we're going to deviate, we're going to have a conversation about it. But because we're disciplined about what we are intentionally trying to implement, we can make very educated and wise decisions on what changes need to be made. So I think that, when it comes to the processes, it's important that you've got a disciplined team to follow those so that, you can make necessary shifts to, create the efficiency that's going to make you successful in the future.
Absolutely. And I love that. And earlier in the conversation, you said that your team, they're aiming for 10 quotes, 3 sales a day. And your team's not super big, right? You've got 3 people. Is that right?
I've got 4.
4. Okay.
4 full time. Mm-hmm.
So that's great. So we always preach like 3 quotes, like just try to get 3 quotes per person a day and you'll be wildly successful in the industry. And it sounds like that's kind of right aligns really well with your team too.
Yeah, and let me define quotes, because it can be, you can get 10 quotes in one household, so if you're pivoting and having effective conversations, you can really only speak to 2 households and get your 10 quotes in. So, I'll even include, if they're quoting multiple vehicles, they'll be able to include those in the 10 quotes too. So it's not as complicated as it sounds. And, I think that a lot of people get intimidated by that at first, but that's why I feel it's important to define quotes. But the biggest obstacle tends to be the 80 calls, to be honest.
No, but that's okay. So your quote to you, like one household, if you quoted 3 cars, let's say a life insurance policy and a disability, that's 5 quotes with one household. Is that right?
That's 5 quotes. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, that's great. And then to circle back, so processes wise, you say you try to make them as black and white as possible, eliminate the gray area. So I have to ask you, because I'm sure this has come up, when a teammate does try to deviate from the plan, what does that conversation look like?
Yeah. Well, first off, in my training, the quote, the checker gets what the checker checks, that's something I live by. Obviously I can't check every single thing, but I spot check very often. And I let the numbers speak for themselves. If they're not performing and hitting the goals that I've set, I think that's another important piece. When your expectations are clear and we goal set at the beginning of every month, there's no, what do I need to do this month? It's very clear. So when we talk about our processes, based on their skill level, based on the processes we've got in place, I think that where you are, you should be hitting this specific goal. Everyone has completely different goals. So, what I'm looking for each individual producer is, it's going to be different. I think that a lot of people struggle initially with not being completely bought into our internet lead process, for example. We've got to stick to every single piece of that, because you never know how each customer is going to respond. You never know what is going to get a response from, each individual. Everybody's different. And before we can truly say, hey, you're not hitting your goals because of this reason, we first have to make sure that, they're following every specific process we've got written down. If I see that they're not, then, I'm going to pull them in the office and I'm going to have a conversation with them about, what do they feel that the process is? How do you feel that you should be approaching this situation, so that I can make sure I've done my job and explaining it in a way that they could digest it. Once that's out of the way, typically, we can move forward and we'll make some slight shifts, and now we've got them back on track. When new team members start, they're drinking out of a fire hose. I'll try my best to be patient, because when you throw everything that we've got to offer at a new team member, I mean, I don't expect them to pick it all up. There's going to be those exceptions, but for the most part, you know, my repeat things 2 to 3 times has gotten up pretty high. I'd say I'm about 5 or 10 times now. So, you know, as long as they're doing the basics right and I see the activity, that's the most important thing. And, you know, and their desire to get better.
Yep.
I want to touch on the, you know, when you're talking about your internet lead process, how do you get somebody bought in on something like that? Because if I'm coming into the insurance space, I'm not going to be bought in on the like internet lead like that. What's the conversation like to where they're invested in the vision of the organization? How do you set them up?
Yeah. Well, one, I want to make sure they know that I care. Internet leads is me investing in them. And I don't give them new internet leads until I feel that they're ready for it. So then that makes them feel like, oh, this is a privilege. I've earned internet leads. So we start there. And a lot of what I teach is mindset. So, you know, when people come in, you know, whether they've got sales experience or not, a lot of people know about pipeline. But internet leads is I think one of the most effective ways to build that pipeline. And whether we can or can't help them now, we can help them in the future. No is never, never. It's just not right now. So, you know, the more leads, the more activity that we're driving, the more opportunities we're going to have to close that customer and help them out, whether it be now or in the future. So, you know, that's just part of what we do is internet leads. But, you know, another piece to that is everyone can't handle the same amount of volume. So, you know, when I have new team members come in, I'm really just testing them. I give them 5 leads a day. I give them, you know, and then I increase that, I decrease that, and see where they're comfortable. I don't want them to feel burnt out. But I do have some team members that'll work 25 leads a day and want more, you know. So, you know, those are the people that have really perfected that efficiency piece and can follow the process to the T and still, you know, have a very productive and not feel like, you know, they're drowning with that type of volume.
Are internet leads your primary acquisition strategy, or do you have other acquisition strategies too?
Yeah, so I actually just hired a new team member, and she's focused on commercial. So she goes out twice a week to different businesses, and she markets there. So we're really trying to shift there from internet leads. I think they'll always be somewhat a part of what we do. But I also am part of a few networking organizations. So, you know, my goal is to get to 70% referral base. And we run at a pretty high volume, so it's going to take some time, but I do spend a lot of energy getting out in the community, going to events, and, you know, really just getting my name out there. I'm in a big city, so it's tougher to have that, you know, go-to local agent presence. So I actually spend a lot of time in the suburbs of Charlotte, trying to, you know, go to those smaller areas. For example, I have ads in a gym. Even the gym that I go to, I have banners up. So, you know, when people see me there, you know, they know I'm the insurance guy. People say, if you want insurance like a boss, you call Josh Ross. And so that's my motto. But I think the most important thing is just be visible. You know, you got to be visible. Whether you're talking about insurance or not, just be there so people know you and they see you. And when they think about insurance, they're going to think about you.
Dude, you got that tagline like flying on billboards, like, hey, if you want insurance like a boss, call Josh Ross. Like, that's good stuff right there, buddy.
I've got shirts getting sent out right now. You got one coming your way. So.
Let's go. All right. So I want to talk about the year you are having right now, because you are crushing it. All right. Like you've had, I mean, obviously with you being part of Weaver Sales Academy, we talk more often than I do some other agents, but I feel like every month is almost like a record-breaking month for you. And so I want to talk about what you've learned this year, because I know before January you were struggling a little bit to get even life insurance conversations going in that upfront conversation, and now your team's doing like 25, 30, not just life conversations, but actually like submitted life policies a month based on the raw new business conversation. So I'd love to know maybe what you learned in the 30 and 5 challenge, or just what implemented, what changed after January.
Yeah. So we always had, one thing that I learned with my previous agent was how to work an existing book of business. So, running lists and calling our existing customers is always something I've been pretty good at. But when you're scratched, you exhaust that list pretty quickly. So we had months with big success. We had months with not so big success, just because we had a process that was not sustainable due to the size of our book. But the 30 and 5 challenge, it got my team bought into the fact that there are a lot more people out there who need and want life insurance than you think. And I think with new team members, that is a big obstacle, is getting them to believe that people actually want life insurance. A lot of people, a lot of the new team members anyway, they say, it's just, I don't know, I keep getting these no's, and I don't think people actually want it. It's such a tough conversation. So one, hitting that on the head, if you don't feel comfortable with the conversation, then let's talk about the products. Let's make sure you understand the products and you're comfortable presenting the products. And then next, how can we present the products in a way, in the conversations that you have every day, in a way that's going to be comfortable to have and to bring up that conversation, whether it just be ending every phone call with having a life insurance conversation, or asking, a specific question, throughout your auto conversation or renter's insurance conversation that's going to bring up that. And if they say not right now, or if they say no, dig a little deeper, push a little harder. Don't stop there. If they've got it through work, you guys know how to respond to that. If they've got current life insurance, I think that's a big one. A lot of people say, a lot of team members, they'll just be like, okay, well, great. Don't stop there. Do you feel like you have enough coverage? How much do you have? Do you know how much you need? Has anybody had a proper conversation with you? And then, if it's not the best time there, go after the appointment. And really trying to get each team member to be consistent at a process that's comfortable for them at first, to get that instilled as a habit. We got to talk to everybody. And that's what 30 and 5 really challenged us to do, is to figure out what's going to work for us. And, I really sat down with them and I was like, hey guys, we've got 5 different places that we can have an effective life conversation, or, get to an effective life conversation. I was like, any conversation is better than no conversation. I don't care if you just end a phone call with it. They say no, they don't want that. Oh, well, before you go, where is your life insurance? Let's just get into it. Let's just start there, and then we can tweak it and make it better and better and better. But that's 30 and 5 allowed us to create a sustainable process that didn't require us to exhaust our book every time we needed life insurance.
Oh, I love that, man. And I love the thing that stood out to me is don't stop there. Don't stop just by asking one question, because that's like what consumers are supposed to do. They're supposed to be like, nope, not interested. Nah, I got that taken care of, man. I'm good.
Hold up. This is all great in theory. Okay. But if you are coaching a team member, you're coaching a producer, and you're just saying, don't stop there, that's a real fear to have a life conversation. That is really scary, to have that conversation, to muster up any kind of self-confidence that you have to say, hey, let's talk about financial services, when that may not be something they're comfortable with yet. So aside from just a mantra, how are you coaching and working through that very real fear of overcoming that?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I think it's important to make sure that they have a full and clear understanding of the products. When you understand the products and what they can do for our customers, that I think helps get over that obstacle there. I'll even have, at times, I had my sales leader come in. He's a fanatic when it comes to the life insurance conversations and our process and our systems and how to navigate through those. So sometimes they just need to hear from someone else. And obviously having them go on your training website, and I have them go on there every Tuesday and every Thursday. I hold them accountable. I say, hey guys, we're going to watch a specific video. Some weeks I'm like, hey, just watch a video and then come back to me and send me 3 things that you learned. So that was really effective. When we really started to dive into your training, that made a big difference in how comfortable they were too. So I think, really diving into how comfortable they are with the products is really what helped them get to the next step.
You're hitting on a couple different things. So Courtney, you brought up a great point. It's the product knowledge helps, but then it's just having the options for questions to, obviously role playing, practicing, just building that confidence muscle. So when you do see it or when they do experience it real time, and understanding real time is different than role playing. I understand that. We all understand that, but at least you have the confidence muscle built to know the questions that you're supposed to be asking. And then all of a sudden you ask the question and the customer actually answers it the way that you were intending them or hoping they would answer it. And you're like, holy smokes, that worked. That's an automatic confidence build because you're stacking wins because you're prepared. All right. And I think that's the point you're hitting on, Courtney and Josh, is you have to be prepared. Like, you can't just be ready to go in and ask one question and then not understand the other questions that you should have in your arsenal to prepare yourself for a conversation that isn't always the easiest to have.
Well,
Exactly.
And I think to Josh's point here too, like having a process, having a guide, because it's a conversation, especially when you're talking about life insurance. I think a lot of times, I know I struggled with this in the beginning of trying to position myself as the expert when I didn't know. Like, I felt inadequate to have this conversation instead of dropping down and going, oh, I'm just having a conversation and seeing if I have a solution to their problem. So I think having what you both are speaking to is like the roadmap, the process, and know that it might take some twists and turns, but it's just a conversation.
It's just a conversation, yeah. And I think another thing I'll add is I intentionally have a very open concept office too. So I can hear everything that my team's saying. So we do role play, but typically it's more so situational. When they finish a phone call, and I didn't hear a live conversation. I asked, what happened? Why didn't you pivot? We've got to make sure we pivot. If they did pivot, how did that conversation go? What was their response? What could you have said to keep them engaged a little longer to see if maybe there was a need? And really just trying to coach in the moment is a big factor for us. And I started my career in a sales center. Or a call center. And that was something that I learned. And, I took a little bit of that and brought it over here with me. That real-time coaching, I think, is more powerful than anything.
Coaching in the moment, yes. I would reiterate that. That is extremely powerful because it's live in time. They know exactly how the conversation just went, in which then you can do what you're amazing at and be the coach and be like, okay, tweak this, say this differently. Like, this is what I would have done. So I love that, Josh. And Courtney, I want to hit on your point just real fast because I just got off a coaching call last week with a producer that was struggling exactly with what you're struggling with, thinking that they had to have the perfect conversation or they had to know everything or they had to ask questions in this sequence. And what you just said is powerful because so many of us think that we have to know everything, that it has to be perfect. Here's the thing is you're getting in your own way of helping customers because you're worried about being perfect, when in all reality, the customer just wants to know that you give a shit. Just be curious. Just ask questions. If they tell you, hey, yeah, I've got it through work, be curious. Hey, what do you have through work? How did you arrive at that benefit number? Who helped you get that? Like, just be curious and ask questions. That's it. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. There's no magical question out there. Just keep the conversation going.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree. I think that with a lot of, it's easy to get a team member to ask about life insurance for the most part. That is a challenge, but that next step of continuing to uncover needs is really the challenge. And it takes practice, it takes swings at the bat. But, with WSA and then, just jumping on board with being, there as often, as soon as I get a new team member on the phone, I'm over there. Like, what's going on? I'm helping them with system navigation. We got to maximize this opportunity, and I do that until I'm comfortable with, with where they are and being able to do it on their own.
Go ahead.
I want to get into coaching for just a second because we're talking about life insurance and driving life insurance and coaching in the moment. So I'm going to share a story if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
So this weekend, one of the things that we like to do is like trial by fire. So if you come and you spend any time in our house, we are always going to offer that you can wakeboard. We're like, let's go. We want to see you out there. We want to see you overcome adversity. Like, it's just part of a requirement to be a friend of ours, I think. And one of the things that when we're teaching this is if we don't constantly tweak in the moment, the person will continue to do the same thing over and over again and not know what they're doing wrong and get very frustrated, and they'll want to quit very easily. And I think what you're speaking to right here and the coaching in the moment is giving them tiny tweaks of, I would like for a conversation to sound more like this. Did you say this? Is there anything that you see over and over again with life insurance that you feel like you're constantly tweaking, having to coach your team on?
Yeah, I'd say more recently, it's not just going for the easiest product. It's easy to go for the final expenses. It's easy to go for the 10-year term. It's easy to make the price seem attractive, but how do we have an effective conversation and get them to realize that $200 a month that they thought was way too much money is something they should not be, moving forward in life without paying for. It's not whether you can live with it, it's whether you can live without it. So really just, making them realize that, hey, people don't spend your own money, or don't spend money out of other people's pockets. Let's truly have a needs-based conversation so that we can do our job in making sure the customer knows how much they should actually have, as opposed to, let's just get you something. Let's just get anything. No. Let's make sure they know what they need, and they can make the decision to just get something.
You're about to get me fired up right now because transactional selling is a hot topic right now in the industry. And I think that there's a lot of individuals that are going to have extremely high loss ratios when it comes to life insurance because they are transactional selling it without having the conversation that you're having. Kind of like the old mindset that I've heard for years is, well, $100,000 is better than nothing. Granted, that's true, but did you actually have the conversation around $1 million that they probably need before just slapping up? All right, I'm not going to get started on this, but it's like, I love what you're saying. Like, you're encouraging your team to go a step further and actually have that conversation, because you can sell life insurance on the upfront conversation with it. And it still be in a transactional because it's over the phone, but it's still a value-based, relationship-based conversation where you're asking questions to figure out a problem and then you're solving that problem.
That's it.
And it's also, selling out of your own pocket, not trying to be somebody's accountant, is a hard concept to get through, because you do, if it's more than you would spend as a salesperson, you're going to pull back naturally and be like, ooh, I would not spend this much. But one of our biggest customers came in, and when she came in, if we would have prejudged her, she would not have the policies that she had. So I think it takes you going through that person too. I think it takes you like having somebody prove you wrong in a scenario. Like, let me just what's the top end of the budget, and having them say, yeah, I can afford that. I think is another thing, speaking to confidence of, with action, you change the story.
Agreed. All right, Josh.
Totally agree.
You've dropped a lot of nuggets on this episode, bro. Like, this has been great. This has been one of my favorites so far. Just saying.
Yeah,
so
good.
yeah, man, this is so good. So how can we add value to you today? Are you struggling with anything that you feel like, because I know you have huge, big goals. All right. You want to be in the top like 25 of the company. All right. So what's keeping you from getting there right now? How can we help you out today?
I think, and we haven't even mentioned this yet, but really one of my big focuses is business lines, and really getting out and making that effective, an effective process. You know, I'm all about processes and being black and white, but that's one that I'm really trying to perfect. And, you know, and not only that, but also driving more financial services premium. And, you know, even though, you know, we're at a point where we're doing well with life, you know, travel is not an issue, I have to get to that next level. And how can we get my team bought in? But I think more importantly, how can we get in front of more qualified people that are going to have the means to get us to that next level?
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about, you open to talking about premium just real fast, driving premium? Yeah. So tell me real fast, how many people are you currently meeting with as an office, either in person or virtually on a weekly, monthly basis?
Keep it simple. I try to meet, and this is virtually, 3 a day. So with all of my new customers, when my team writes them, I have my service girl. She sets me an onboarding appointment, and that's when, you know, I go over their policies, make sure they're in the best situation, ask for referrals, and if we did write life insurance, I have a deeper conversation about that.
Okay. Out of the 3, so you try to have, how many would you say you're consistently having a week? Like out of the 3 a day, so you're studying what, 15? How many are showing?
Yeah, probably about half.
Okay. So that would be where I would start, is how can you increase that show ratio a little bit more? Because the more people you get in front of, obviously, the more quality conversations you're going to have. It's going to give you the opportunity to find more money. So are you currently, what's your confirmation process right now for the appointment?
So I have my service girl, she texts them first thing in the morning, reminding them that, you know, they have an appointment with me, but I'd like to get that automated. I just haven't done that yet.
What would you be open to changing that the day before the appointment?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So I would encourage you to try that. I've helped a lot of agents with this process, and that's one thing. Most of them do the exact same thing you're doing, is texting the day of. Just by making that one little tweak, it gives the customer a 24 hours heads up versus a 6-hour heads up, which, you know, could turn into more held appointments.
And the copy of the text message is going to matter too. So obviously enthusiasm, and then I don't like a financial review or any kind of word like that. Like I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions prior to. Look forward to seeing you at X date and this time. My other question is, you said if we already have life, we don't talk about life in the appointment.
No. If they already have life, then I'll have a deeper conversation about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. And then, so you're holding every onboarding appointment?
Right now I do. I hold every onboarding appointment, and that is in the plan to get someone else to do that. But as of now, I've got the capacity to do it. Okay.
No, I love that, man. Well, being a new market, I'm a big fan. I met with like every customer as well for over the first 2.5, 3 years. So, all right. So those customers, you wrote years 1, 2, and you're in your 3rd year, right?
I am.
Okay. So being strategic, homeowners, obviously, do you have an appointment process for just not onboarding, but to meet with your current customers and continue those relationships? What does that currently look like? I
need to do much better at that. I really do. I had a company setting me appointments for renewals. But honestly, my onboardings take a lot of my time, and I say I have the capacity for it because I haven't tried to make room for anything else. But that is something that I need to do. And, I feel that, I'm glad you mentioned that. I feel that is something that I could delegate. Ding, ding. There we go. My new team member is really, really good with service, and she's definitely someone I could see doing that for sure.
So I love onboarding appointments, but I can tell you one customer comes to mind that I met with for in the third year, they were actually finally honest with me. Mm-hmm. And so this is the only reason why going back and working with your current customers, not only from retention, making sure they're taking care of relationships, but the customer I worked with, the first year, zero interest in telling me anything. Second year opened up a little bit more. Third year ended up doing $1 million rollover for them, and some big life insurance cases because they finally developed a relationship that they were open enough to have a conversation around money. All right. Mm. So my question for you is one, all right, so what's the process? You don't got to answer this right now, but what's the process for my team members to go ahead and start maybe sitting with you on those onboarding appointments over the next 30 days to learn that process and that appointment style? So then effective in August, you can start getting current customers. And I would start with your top 100 and your homeowners that you work with. How can you get those appointments on the calendar, meeting with at least two current customers a day every single day through the months of August, September, October to hopefully finish your year out by October 31st? Okay.
I like that.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's definitely something I need to implement. Absolutely.
Are you comfortable delegating that out?
Yeah. I, because I am new market, the onboarding piece I feel is at the moment, especially with the bigger customers, is important. I've got a team that we've got a great team, and retention's not an issue, but I want them to know who they're doing business with, and if for some reason, have a retention issue with team, they still know my name. And they know my voice, and that's where I'm at with the onboarding piece. Now, the renewals, I wouldn't mind delegating that immediately, but I really want people to be able to meet me and to know that I'm here if they need me.
Yeah, I think renewals is a great place to start. I also think from an accountability standpoint, and you want to drive premium, it gives your producers more ownership in the business as well.
Yeah. Love that.
All right. So what's your action step out of here? We always like to get right into action. So what's the first thing you're going to do to implement this?
Well, first off, I am going to have team members shadow me on onboardings. And not to take over onboardings, but there's a lot that I do in onboardings that can be done at renewals. And then, delegate that to a specific team member that I have in mind, to run those lists, set those appointments, and get that done.
Let's go.
Also,
let's freaking
last
go.
Thing, text. I'm implementing that too. 24-hour notice, no longer morning of.
Yeah.
All right, my man. This was good.
Spicy chicken nuggets going
good.
Down.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
This was good. And again, the list, the top, even if it's just the top 10 or 20, those are really good customers typically. So, which you're looking for strategy, maybe just incorporate those top 10, 20, 25 into your meeting process. Yeah. But that's
also a place that you can dig into and get some referrals for business owners, because they have their people too. So if you're looking at your top 100, who's their, who do they use for their home stuff when it's like a plumber, an electrician, a real estate agent, they all have their people too. So that's a great place to dip into that.
Yeah. And business lines, I know you just started that. So, but having somebody that's intentionally going out 2 times a week, every week, I think that's going to be a huge boost for you in the business line. So that's a great process in itself.
Awesome. Yeah, I hope so.
All right, brother. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been, and again, this has been one of my favorites, brother. We got Buzz on the Buzz today. You want insurance like a boss? Go with Josh Ross, baby. Let's go.
There we go.
Josh, if somebody wanted to follow you, they wanted to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, Facebook is Josh Ross Insurance. Instagram is Josh_Ross_state_farm.
I love it, Josh.
Love it. Josh, thank you so much again for all of those of you that are listening. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you. If you enjoyed today's episode as much as we did, give us a 5-star review. Tell people about the Insurance Buzz. Other than that, as always, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Go out, make it great.